Let's catch up on Europe now. Greek politicians say they are edging towards an agreement that will save the nation from default for now, tying all parties to a raft of new austerity measures in return for the $130 billion of bailout money. But at what cost? Well, James Shugg joins us now live from Westpac in London. Now, James, the Greek deadline, that phrase is becoming something of an oxymoron. Third deadline missed this week overnight.
Yes, and it's getting close, isn't it, to March, when Greece has a significant multi-billion euro requirement to repay to investors, and it won't get the money until the three political parties agree on austerity measures, until the Greek government can agree with the creditors the extent of the haircut that those creditors are going to wear, and then you've got to get the troika of EU, ECB and IMF officials to actually to tick off on whatever is finally reached. There's still a lot of work to be done, and I think markets still have a significant probability in mind that it might not actually be achieved and that we will see a Greek default next month. It's still a realistic possibility.
There was an interesting report in the UK press this morning saying that confidence has actually returned with all that European Central Bank cheap credit that's being pumped in, and that potentially Europe might be just accepting a Greek exit from the euro. Do you see that as a possibility? No, I don't. I think that there has been a significant improvement in confidence. You can see it in surveys of analyst confidence. You can see it in the stock market. And you're right, it is because of that long-term refinancing operation from the ECB. We've got another one coming up at the end of February. Could be twice as big, about €1 trillion at the end. Because what market participants are realising slowly, this is quantitative easing by the ECB. It's expanding its balance sheet, putting money into the system, some of which is going into the sovereigns, and that's why yields of countries like Spain and Italy have begun to fall. And I think markets are now thinking we could be getting even closer to the point where the ECB itself announces that it's going to be buying bonds on a bigger basis. So I think that's where the confidence is coming from, that the ECB is doing more. But if the confidence is such that some of the major players in Europe now believe that they can handle a Greek default without contagion, do you think that's right? I mean, that's what they thought with Lehman Brothers. That's why Lehman Brothers was let go.
No. When it happened, if a Greek default were to happen, there would be a huge increase in risk aversion again. Which banks are going to be hit the most? Funding costs would rise. I do expect that to happen if we were to see a Greek default, but that's when the European Central Bank, I think, would step in. They don't want to announce they're going to do it ahead of time because it creates the moral hazard that governments won't do everything they can to get their budget deficits down. But I think they will step up to the plate at the point they decide when there's absolutely no other option.
Why has this effective money printing by the European Central Bank not really helped Portugal very much? I see its yields are still about 13%, aren't they?
Yeah, well, you see, remember, Portugal's already had a bailout, as has Ireland and Greece, of course. So the issue there is that they aren't achieving their budget deficit reduction targets because of the recession they're in, which is going to mean that they are going to need yet another bailout, most likely. And so that's another complication that investors just want to steer well clear of, I think. Those three I mentioned, they're already out of the game. But it's Spain and Italy and the other European governments that are having some funding difficulties. They're the ones that the European Central Bank can save.
And briefly, James, I thought it was very interesting. I've just spoken to Marius Kloppers, head of BHP Billiton, and he says he feels that the risk of Europe to him was actually worse just before Christmas than it is now because of the LTRO, this refinancing.
I agree. And I think that's just the first step of the ECB participating more and more. And all this talk about the EFSF and the other bailout fund, the ESM that's coming in, that's irrelevant. That's a policy cul-de-sac. When the ECB really comes in big time, that's when you can be more confident that Europe can actually work its way through this horrible sovereign mess.
All right. James Shugg, we may be waddling towards a solution. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Dickie.